Never in the history of the whole of mankind has there been a better time than right now for you to educate your children at home. Hi, I'm Christine and welcome back. And today we're continuing on the theme of dyslexia and looking at what causes it. Again, there might be things here that are going to be controversial, you might not like. Sorry about that. Okay, now, English is not 100% phonetic, like, for example, German. However, phonics is still the best way to teach reading. Now, what does it mean for something to be phonetic? Well, what that means is that when you write it, it sounds exactly the way it looks. Now, in English, that is not the case. In German, it is exactly the way it looks. So you can read German even if you don't understand it, because you know how the vowels and how the consonants work, and it's the same every time. In English, that is not the same. For example, the letter A sometimes makes an A sound, sometimes makes an A sound, depending on what word it's in and how it's used. For example, TH doesn't make a T sound, it makes a Th or a Th, depending if it's this or think that we're saying. And then, of course, we've got things like OUGH and IGH, which, well, OUGH is very complicated. And we've also got things like hard and soft C's and G's. So, depending on where it is in the word and whatever, it affects the sound, and therefore that's an extra bit of learning, let's say, to understand the reading of English. But what other ways are there to teach? Now, often in schools, if the child can't sound out the word phonetically, they're told to look at the picture. You know that children's books have pictures in them, so they scan the picture and they try and work out what is the picture telling me. But actually, doing that, looking at the picture to try and work out what the word is very problematic in terms of reading. So what do I mean? Well, when we read from left to right, and we read from top to bottom, and our eyes move in those directions all the time. Now, when you read a word, if you're a competent reader, when you read a word, you don't even recognise that that's what you're doing, because of the way your eyes are moving so quickly. It's almost like you can see the whole word at once, and especially if it's a word that you know well, your brain is able to recognise that word instantly. There's no processing time at all. So you're maybe not even aware that you are, only if you're reading a whole sentence and you have to go right the way across the page, yes, your eyes are moving from left to right. But you're barely aware that you're doing that. Now, when you look at a picture, you scan it in all directions, because you don't know specifically, especially if somebody says to you, look at the picture and try and work out what the word is. Well, what are you looking for? Your eyes are all over the place. And so at that really crucial time, when the child should be learning to control their eyes, to have them moving in a specific direction, you're also training them to move them wildly. And you can understand then why somebody who has a diagnosis of dyslexia is saying, well, the letters are kind of all jumbled and they're everywhere. Well, why are they jumbled and everywhere? Because the child doesn't know how to control his or her eyes. Does that make sense? So what I'm saying is that it's not a problem that's intrinsic to the child, it's an external thing. They've been taught badly. Okay? Now, another way that children are often taught is to try and work out from the context what the word might be. And I'll give you an example of a word that's very problematic. So, for example, there might be a sentence, I'm going to my home, and the child reads it as I'm going to my house. And you can understand the words have very similar meanings. They actually start with the same two letters, but they're different words. And here's the thing, when we're teaching reading, we have to be 100% precise. If the child misses out the letter at the end or mispronounces it very slightly, we have to correct that. And if the child mixes up house and home, it's easy to see how that has happened. And because we're working out from the context as opposed to reading what's on the page, it's very difficult to argue between house and home. Okay, that's all for just now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop there, and we'll come back next week and start looking at how we're going to fix dyslexia, how we're going to make things better for the child with that diagnosis. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next time.